Welcome to Life Stories, where every journey is filled with lessons of strength, perseverance, and transformation. Today, we're sharing a powerful story of a woman who, after years of feeling underestimated and unseen, decided to reclaim her life. Emily, a dedicated mother and wife, faces the harsh reality of being belittled by her mother-in-law and her own children. But instead of succumbing to the negativity, she makes a bold decision to return to school and pursue her dream of becoming a lawyer. Follow her inspiring journey of personal growth and resilience. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to start today's story. My name is Emily, and for years, I believed I was doing everything right. I had made sacrifices, sometimes to the point of exhaustion, for my family, but as I stood frozen outside my daughter's bedroom door one afternoon, everything I thought I knew about myself was shattered. My 14-year-old daughter, Lexi, was talking to my 12-year-old son, Kyle, and their voices drifted out into the hallway. "Mom's not smart enough to help with homework anyway," Lexi said. There was a tone in her voice that made my chest tighten. And before I could catch my breath, Kyle added, "Yeah, Grandma's right." I froze, hearing the words I feared most. All these years of pouring my heart into them, of being there for every recital, every school project, every scraped knee, and now they thought I was stupid. How had I gone from being their everything to someone they dismissed so easily? In that moment, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I had always known my mother-in-law, Karen, didn't approve of me, but I didn't expect her to reach this far. You see, I didn't finish college. Instead, I supported my husband, Tom, through law school, working full-time while raising our children. I thought that by sacrificing my education, I was helping to build a future for all of us. But apparently, that sacrifice had made me invisible in their eyes. Or worse, it had made me an object of ridicule. It wasn't just what they had said about me. It was how they said it. Lexi's words had a biting edge to them, and Kyle's agreement felt like a knife in my side. I had worked so hard, given so much, yet somehow, it wasn't enough to make them see me as anything other than the mom who couldn't help with homework. I had done everything right, or so I thought. I kept the house running, made sure they had everything they needed, cooked their meals, drove them to their activities, attended parent-teacher meetings, and yet, there I was, standing outside their door, feeling like I wasn't even in the picture anymore. Then I remembered Karen's words at dinner the previous week. She had patted my hand condescendingly and said, "You know, dear, Lexi really should call me when she needs help with those advanced placement courses. I know how important her grades are." After all, Tom hadn't said a word. As usual, his silence was deafening. The truth was, Tom never stood up to his mother. Not once. And here we were, the consequences of his inability to defend me becoming painfully clear. I had to confront this. I pushed open the door to Lexi's bedroom, the anger rising in my chest. "Is that what you really think?" I asked, my voice sharp. Both kids jumped. Lexi's face flushed, but she lifted her chin, trying to seem brave. "Well, you didn't even finish college, Mom," she said, "and you're always asking Dad for help with the big words in the newspaper." The words stung, but the hurt was not just from what they said. It was from how they had absorbed everything Karen had said about me. They were echoing her words, and that felt like a betrayal. I walked into the room, sitting down on Lexi's bed. I looked them both in the eye. "Do you know why I didn't finish college?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They shook their heads, and I could see the confusion in their eyes. "Because I chose to support your father through law school instead," I said, the weight of the truth hanging in the air. "Someone had to work to pay the bills. And someone had to take care of you too. That was my choice. It doesn't make me stupid." Lexi looked at me, her eyes wide with surprise. "But why didn't you ever tell us?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Because I never regretted my choice to put our family first," I said. "But maybe it's time for some changes around here." Something in me snapped that day. I knew I couldn't keep letting this slide. I had to do something to prove not only to my children but to myself that I wasn't just a bystander in my own life. I stood up, feeling a new sense of determination building inside me. It was time to show them who I was. Time to prove to Karen, and to everyone else, that I was capable of more than they gave me credit for. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a plan began to form. I would go back to school. I would attend law school. Just like Tom had. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone tell me what I could or couldn't do. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The sun was still low, casting a soft glow over the kitchen as I made my coffee. I stared at the steaming cup in my hands. Considering the gravity of what I had decided the night before, law school, it felt surreal. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the only way to reclaim my life. To show my children, especially Lexi and Kyle, that it was never too late to follow your dreams. The anger from the night before had simmered down, but the determination had only grown. I wasn't going to let my children believe the lies Karen had been feeding them. I wasn't going to let them see me as someone incapable, someone who was too dumb to help with their homework. They deserved better, and so did I. I had a full scholarship to UCLA when I met Tom. That was the path I had dreamed of, until I chose to support him and our growing family. I'd always believed that my sacrifice was worth it, that my choices were for the good of all of us. But somewhere along the way, I had lost sight of my own worth. Now, I had to find it again. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Law school was grueling. The LSAT was intimidating. But I was no stranger to hard work. I had spent years supporting my family in ways that no one saw. I had managed every detail of our home, our finances, our children's lives, all while putting my dreams on hold. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. When I confronted Tom that evening, he was sitting on the couch, watching TV, and as usual, not really paying attention. It was time to have a conversation we'd been avoiding for years. Tom, I said, my voice steady, I've decided to go back to school. I'm going to law school. His head snapped up, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something other than indifference in his eyes. What? He asked, his voice incredulous. I'm going to study for the LSAT. I repeated, I'm going to apply next fall. I'm going to prove that I am capable of more than what your mother, or anyone else thinks. Tom was silent for a long moment, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. Emily, that's years of intense studying, he said, hesitation in his voice. What about the kids? What about everything? They'll be fine, I said, standing taller now, resolute. They need to see me as someone worthy of respect. They need to know that I am not just Mom, I am Emily. A person with my own goals. My own dreams. Tom sighed, rubbing his forehead. It's a big commitment, Emily. I'm not saying you can't do it. But you have to understand what you're getting into. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice firm. It's time to stop living in your mother's shadow. This is my time now. He looked at me, a conflicted expression on his face. I'll support you. But you have to understand this is going to be hard. I understand, I said, giving him a small smile. But I'm doing this, whether you support me or not. The next day, I called Rachel, my best friend. She'd always been my cheerleader. And she was more than happy to help me figure out the first steps. You can do this, Emily, she said, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. We'll find study materials, help you with prep, and make sure you're on track. In that moment, I realized something profound. I wasn't alone in this journey. Rachel believed in me, and I realized, perhaps for the first time, that I had the right to believe in myself, too. It wasn't long before I dove headfirst into preparing for the LSAT. Every day after the kids left for school, I would sit at the kitchen table, surrounded by books, notes, and prep materials. At first, the logic games seemed impossible. I'd stare at the pages, overwhelmed by the complexity of it all. But then I'd remind myself, I had been a homemaker, a mother, and a wife for so long, juggling tasks that required more mental strength than people realized. If I could manage a family and support Tom through law school, I could conquer this too. What kept me going was the thought of proving my worth, not just to Karen, but to everyone who had ever doubted me. The words she had said about me, about how I wasn't smart enough, echoed in my mind, but now, they didn't have the same power they once did. With every practice test, every new concept I tackled, I felt a shift within myself. I was becoming someone new. Someone capable of more than just being the mom. The weeks rolled by, and my confidence grew. I found myself enjoying the challenges of the LSAT prep. There was something satisfying about solving a tough logic puzzle, about pushing myself to think in ways I hadn't in years. The hours spent studying were long and exhausting, but they were also invigorating. I began to feel alive in a way I hadn't for so long. The moment I had been dreading arrived sooner than expected, the family dinner at Karen's house. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the unsaid things, the judgments Karen had already placed on me. I knew she'd make her usual comments about my limitations, about how I was just a housewife, and not cut out for anything more. But this time, I was ready. I had my answer, and it wasn't going to be in the form of a passive smile or a muted nod. As I walked into Karen's home that Sunday, I held my head high. Tom was already seated, looking as uncomfortable as always when his mother was around. And there she was, perched in her usual spot, her eyes gleaming with that condescending smile that had always made me feel small. She didn't waste time before opening her mouth. "Emily," Karen said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "How's everything going? Still managing the house and raising the kids? I suppose? You know, Lexi's AP courses are getting more advanced now. Maybe you should call me next time for help." I gripped my fork tightly, forcing a smile. This was it. "Actually, Karen," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've decided to go back to school. I'm going to law school. I'm studying for the LSAT. And I'll be applying next fall." The silence at the table was deafening. Karen froze mid-bite, and Tom's eyes widened, his fork lowering slowly. He didn't know how to respond. "Excuse me?" Karen finally managed, her voice thick with disbelief. "I'm serious," I said, meeting her eyes. "I'm going to law school. And nothing is going to stop me." The rest of the meal was awkward, to say the least. Karen's smile had faded, replaced by a look of thinly veiled contempt. But I didn't care. I was standing up for myself. For my family. For the person I had always been but had never fully acknowledged. I was done letting Karen control the narrative of my life. And I was just getting started. As the months went by, my commitment to law school only deepened. The work was hard, the hours long, but with every challenge, I grew stronger, more confident in who I was and what I was capable of. Tom, though still hesitant, began to support me in his own way, even if it was just through quiet encouragement. But the real change came when Karen, who had once belittled me, found herself facing the reality of her own struggles. It wasn't long before she needed a job. And, ironically, it was through my firm that she found herself applying for a position under my supervision. The power I once thought I had lost, the strength to define my own worth, was finally mine again. And in that moment, I realized that the greatest victory wasn't in proving anyone wrong, but in proving to myself that I could rise above the limitations others had placed on me. As I walked across the stage at my graduation, with Tom and our children cheering in the crowd, I knew that this was just the beginning. Sometimes, the hardest part of life is finding the courage to step into your own power. And I had done just that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with new life stories.